Through Quranic insight we gain wisdom's light. Through Quranic insight we gain wisdom's light. Illuminating our path to what is right. Illuminating our path to what is right.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen Amma ba'd fa'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulallah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the program of Madani Channel, Quranic Insight. In the previous episode, we discussed a topic from Surah Al-Ma'idah, help in acts of goodness. We covered the commands of Allah Almighty and the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding helping in acts of goodness and refraining from helping in sinful acts. We then talked about the virtues of guiding others towards goodness and the various ways to assist in good deeds. In the end, we discussed the warnings against cooperating in sinful actions. In today's episode, we will discuss the final topic selected from Surah Al-Ma'idah, the prohibition and condemnation of gambling. First, we will talk about the prohibition and condemnation of gambling. Then we'll define gambling, discuss its worldly harms, and explain its various forms. Lastly, we will highlight the virtues of Surah Al-Ma'idah. So let's begin our episode with the blessings of sending durood upon the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam said, "O people, undoubtedly from the terror and accountability of the Day of Judgment, the person who would attain the quick salvation will be the one who would have recited salat upon me in abundance. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam." Dear viewers, one of the evils that is destroying society is gambling, which has ruined many lives. For a virtuous society, gambling is like a poison. Its religious, social, medical, and financial harms are numerous. Islam declared it forbidden from the very beginning. Allah Almighty, while declaring the prohibition of gambling in Surah Al-Ma'idah, proclaims, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. Translation from Kanzul Irfan: O you who believe, indeed alcohol and gambling and idols and the casting of arrows to determine fate are impure satanic deeds. So refrain from them, so that you may attain success. Some gamblers start by placing small bets just for fun, but gradually they become so addicted to this vice that quitting gambling becomes difficult for them. In gambling, a person can lose a lot. Gamblers often face financial issues, and when they see no other way out, they take loans with interest, and while trying to hit a big win, they further entangle themselves in the mire of gambling. They waste their time at gambling dens, where they also get involved in other vices like drug addiction and theft. Many gamblers become negligent of their jobs or businesses, losing their good jobs or ruining their businesses in the process. Their family life gets destroyed. Their reputation is ruined. They become stressed and ill. When gamblers see no way out, they become so desperate that they even think about committing suicide, which is a grave sin. Dear viewers, in the blessed hadith, gambling is strongly condemned. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The one who plays backgammon, a form of gambling, and then stands to perform prayer is like the one who performs wudu with pus and the blood of a pig and then stands to pray." Allahu Akbar. Gambling is an addiction that causes a person to lose his senses once he is caught in its grip. It is true that a gambler doesn't always lose. Sometimes he wins. However, his mind is constantly in a state of confusion and stress. If he loses, he is troubled by the loss of his money. If he wins, he is anxious about losing again in future games. Thus, a gambler is always surrounded by worry and grief. When he returns home and is reminded of his family responsibilities, he often loses control. Finally, it leads to the breakdown of a once happy and thriving household. Defining gambling, Sayyid Sharif Jurjani rahmatullahi alayhi writes, any game in which there is a condition that the loser must give something belonging to him to the winner is considered gambling. Allah Almighty condemned gambling more than once in the Holy Quran. Hence Allah Almighty proclaims, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. Translation from Kanzul Irfan, they ask you about alcohol and gambling. Say in them there is major sin and some worldly benefits for people, and their sin is greater than their benefit. This verse condemns alcohol and gambling, highlighting that their harm outweighs their benefit. While gambling might occasionally yield free money, the sins and conflicts caused by gambling are far more significant. Gambling can lead to enmities among people, humiliation, and even the loss of one's entire wealth. It also fosters a habit of evading hard work and developing a dependency on unearned gains. Dear viewers, the money obtained from gambling is absolutely haram. In Islam, earning through lawful means holds significant importance. The Holy Quran repeatedly commands Muslims to consume pure and clean food and prohibits eating what is unlawful. Those who consume haram food find their supplications rejected. For example, there is a hadith in Muslim that describes a person who after a long journey raises his hands to the sky in an untidy state and makes supplication, O Rabb, O Rabb, whereas his food, drink, and clothing are all haram. How can his supplication be accepted? Thus, Muslims should avoid all forms of haram income and strive to earn through halal means to meet their needs in a permissible way and to receive Allah's blessings. Beyond interest-based transactions, another prevalent form of haram income is gambling. Islam's teachings on gambling are clear, yet a large number of Muslims remain unaware of the severity of these sins and crimes. The hadith concerning gamblers states that whoever engages in gambling is as if he dipped his hand into the flesh and blood of a pig. Dear viewers, observing the harms of gambling is not difficult. While gambling, a person becomes neglectful of salah and the remembrance of Allah Almighty. The hatred that the losing gambler develops towards the winning gambler is well known to any wise person. Islam has prohibited its followers from any action or habit that leads to financial or physical harm and diverts them from the remembrance of Allah Almighty. Gambling is a poison more dangerous than any other to societal peace and mutual love. The Quran and Hadith warn against it in various ways. Unfortunately, a significant number of Muslims continue to engage in this practice, neglecting truly beneficial activities for this life and the hereafter. This habit results in their worldly decline and prevents them from making progress toward their eternal well-being. Dear viewers, gambling not only displeases Allah Almighty but also makes the money earned from it haram. The Quran and Hadith instruct us to avoid haram wealth, and there are numerous warnings for those who consume haram wealth. Dear viewers, consuming haram wealth invites divine punishment and closes the doors to acceptance and blessings. Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu states, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned a person who is on a long journey. His hair is messy and his body is covered in dust. He raises his hands towards the sky and cries out, O Rabb, O Rabb, but his food, drink, clothing, and sustenance are all haram. How can his supplication be answered? Dear viewers, if charity is given from haram earnings, it is not accepted. If spent anywhere it does not bring blessings, and leaving behind haram wealth at the time of death can be a cause for one's entry into hell. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, the one who earns haram wealth, if he gives it as charity, it is not accepted. If he spends it, it does not bring blessings. And if he leaves it behind when he dies, it is a cause for his entry into hell. Paradise has been prohibited for the consumers of haram. Just one morsel of haram food carries such a curse that if someone consumes even a single morsel of it, his good deeds are not accepted for 40 days. Dear viewers, earning haram income is extremely disliked in the court of Allah Almighty. That is why Allah Almighty has commanded us to avoid it, as mentioned in the following verse. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la ta'kulu amwalakum bainakum bil batili. Translation from Kanzul Irfan, O you who believe, do not consume the wealth of one another unlawfully. We should avoid haram income, particularly gambling, as Satan aims to create enmity and hostility among us through gambling and distract us from the remembrance of Allah Almighty. Allah Almighty addressed this in Surah Al-Ma'idah. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَن يُوقِيَ بَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ فِي الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ وَيَصُدَّكُمْ عَن ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَعَنِ الصَّلَاةِ. Translation from Kanzul Irfan, indeed Satan only desires to instill enmity and extreme hatred between you through alcohol and gambling, and to prevent you from the remembrance of Allah and the prayer. The worldly consequence of gambling is the occurrence of enmity and hostility among people, while the religious consequence is that a person involved in this vice becomes deprived of the remembrance of Allah Almighty and the observance of prayer times. Therefore, we should avoid gambling and its haram income to safeguard both our faith and worldly life, and strive for halal earnings. Dear viewers, the Muslims have been commanded to consume halal sustenance. Allah Almighty proclaims, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. Translation from Kanzul Irfan, O you who believe, eat from the pure things we have granted you. In obedience to the Almighty, halal sustenance holds a fundamental importance. The most significant aspect of piety and fear of the Almighty is to avoid His disobedience. Earning haram income is a grave act of disobedience. Unfortunately, people have become very careless about distinguishing between halal and haram. The signs of the era described in the hadith are evident, where it is mentioned that a time will come when a person will not care whether what he acquires is from halal or haram means. Dear viewers, it is obligatory for every Muslim to seek halal sustenance. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, seeking halal earnings is a fard after a duty. Earning and consuming halal sustenance brings salvation in this world and the hereafter for a Muslim. The blessed hadith emphasize the great virtues of earning halal sustenance. Those who consume halal sustenance are considered worthy of paradise. Hence, the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, the person who consumes halal things, acts according to the Sunnah, and from whose harm others are safe, will enter paradise. The Almighty answers the supplications of the person who consumes halal sustenance. Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu humbly said to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, please pray that Allah Almighty makes me mustajabud da'wat, meaning the one whose supplications are always answered. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, make halal morsels compulsory for yourself, and you will become mustajabud da'wat. Dear viewers, did you hear that the supplications of those who earn halal income are answered, and they are given glad tidings of paradise? On the other hand, the supplications and deeds of those who earn haram income are not answered, and paradise is prohibited for them. Therefore, we should all strive to earn halal income and avoid haram earnings, especially those from gambling, so that paradise becomes our destiny. Dear viewers, the harms of gambling and the warnings against its earnings have been clearly stated. Therefore, those involved in this forbidden activity in any way should sincerely repent in the court of Allah Almighty. Keep in mind that even after repenting from gambling, the money won through it remains haram. In this regard, Imam Ahmad Raza Khan rahmatullahi alayhi provides guidance and states all the money earned through gambling is entirely haram, and the only way to be free from its sin is to return the amount won to the respective individuals or seek their forgiveness by making amends. If that is not possible, it should be given to their heirs. For those heirs who are of sound mind and have reached puberty, their share can be forgiven with their consent. However, the share of the rest must be given to them, as it is not possible to obtain their forgiveness otherwise. He further states, where you cannot remember who the gamblers were or how much money was won, then estimate the maximum amount of money earned through gambling over that entire period and give that amount as charity with the intention of the owners, that is the unknown gamblers. This will help purify him. Wallahu a'lam. Dear viewers, we have discussed the prohibition and condemnation of gambling, its harms, warnings about haram earnings, and the virtues of halal earnings. Now let's conclude our discussion by presenting the virtues of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Numerous hadiths highlight the virtues of Surah Al-Ma'idah. Hence, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma states, when Surah Al-Ma'idah was revealed to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was riding his mount at the time. The weight of the revelation was so profound that the mount could no longer carry him. So he sallallahu alaihi wasallam dismounted from his mount. Allahu Akbar. In this blessed chapter, guidelines about halal and haram animals are provided, and several commands are detailed. For this reason, the beloved Prophet ﷺ instructed people to learn Surah Al-Ma'idah. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, teach your men Surah Al-Ma'idah and your women Surah An-Nur. Allama Abdur Rauf Munawi rahmatullahi alayhi states, Surah Al-Ma'idah contains many admonitions for men, which is why they were instructed to learn this chapter. On the other hand, Surah An-Nur includes many admonitions for women, addressing issues like the prohibition of revealing adornments. Thus, women were instructed to learn Surah An-Nur. The one who recites this chapter daily will be protected from famine and starvation, and the sustenance will be provided from unseen sources. If this chapter is written down and the ink is washed and given to someone suffering from edema, it will bring relief. Dear viewers, in today's episode, we discussed the topic of the prohibition and condemnation of gambling from Surah Al-Ma'idah. We covered the prohibition and condemnation of gambling, defined what gambling is, explored its harms, and discussed how to repent of it. We also highlighted the virtues and benefits of Surah Al-Ma'idah. With this, our episode on topics selected from Surah Al-Ma'idah comes to an end. May Allah Almighty accept our endeavors. Inshallah, we'll be back in the next episode with a new topic. Keep watching Madani Channel. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Through Quranic insight we gain wisdom's light. Through Quranic insight we gain wisdom's light. Illuminating our path to what is right. Illuminating our path to what is right.